Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. We've got some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by Shimakaze for More Malicious Compliance at Ford Motor Company. So I said in my last post I'd get some more stories from my dad's many years working at Ford. This was actually uncovered by my dad and he had a hand in fixing the situation. After my old man moved up from being an entry-level clerk at Ford, he was posted to scheduling. This, as the name suggests, was the division that scheduled parts to be made for the next day's work on the production line. Stopping the line was bad. $4,000 a minute kind of bad. So you did not want to run out of parts. One day, Dad was called into the manager's office and given a verbal bashing by the boss. The production line was out of parts. Certain brackets had not been painted and therefore could not be installed. Dad was sure he had scheduled these parts to be finished by the afternoon and evening shift, but thought nothing of it. Maybe there was an error, so he got them done by the day shift. Several weeks later, this happened again, and again, and again. Dad pointed out that he had scheduled these brackets to be finished by the afternoon and evening shift, but the boss didn't want to hear it. Accounts had informed him that afternoon and evening shift were doing extremely well. This was a scheduling problem as far as he was concerned, and Dad had to fix it. Wondering what on earth was going on, Dad went down to the floor. Looking around, he found boxes upon boxes of those little lights in your dash that light up for engine check or headlights, etc. There were tens of thousands of these things sitting in the warehouse. Upon further investigation, Dad found out that each production step and each part was assigned a value by accounts. He still has no idea how they came up with this value. The brackets that Dad was scheduling to be finished, each time stocks were low, had a very low number and took some time to finish properly. However, the little lights were very easy to manufacture and had a high value assigned to them. Accounts determined the efficiency of production by how many parts they made in a shift multiplied by the assigned value of said parts. If production finished the parts that Dad scheduled to be done, their efficiency went down and the production managers got a kick in the butt because the number on the paper said they were doing a bad job. So to stop this, they ignored the schedule of parts to be made and just made these little lights that made them look great in the eyes of management whenever they had to finish these brackets. Never mind that it was stopping the production line every time they failed to finish the parts required at $4,000 per minute. In the eyes of management, production was doing a great job because the number on the paper said so. This had been going on for years, and it took Dad months of effort to get management to evaluate production on their work to the schedule rather than this value system made up by accounting. So would you guys agree with me when I say that you have to be very careful when incentivizing things like this? Otherwise, the path of least resistance will lead to people gaming the system like this, where all of a sudden you have the check engine lights and headlights or whatever just piling up because those things make the numbers look really good, instead of doing the work that they have to do. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by IzzyContino, No Carts Allowed. New store director decided we couldn't have carts in the stockroom for any reason. Printed, no carts in back or else cameras will be checked, with error and all. When asked about it, he claimed that there were too many in the back and not enough for customers and to just follow the signs. Which would be fine, except we had 2 full lobbies and an area with over 400 extra. It was spelt wrong, and he was threatening to fire people. Now when he said carts, he meant the ones people put groceries in. But he didn't think about the fact that broken or damaged ones are put there to be repaired, and our other carts are all labeled with what they are. Someone went label gun happy, but that's a different story. So our U-boats, long green carts shaped like a U, were labeled as green long carts. Our garbage bins were labeled garbage collection cart. Our green garden center carts were labeled garden multi-level cart. On and on through everything in the back. Thus, the next morning when he got to work, he found every single cart in the building taken from the back and all the damaged ones returned to up front with blue tape all over them saying broken, do not use. All the U-boats where we store freight were in aisles with freight still on them, and garbages weren't emptied because we couldn't take the garbage cart to the back to the compactor, and we didn't want to leave bins of garbage everywhere. Ew. As a bonus, we had made a maze near the back door of carts, then rode downtown to get out for the nighttime freight crew. I wasn't there for the fallout, but everyone knew what was gonna happen. So the freight crew knew to head on break or lunch when he got there, which is pretty normal for them to all go together since they have no customers and are all tight with each other. So what appears to have happened is he walked into the maze fought, stuck it in for a while, and then found the rest of the store chaos. He started yelling and threatening people and demanding that they stop eating and get their butts to put the carts away. Now they are legally taking mandatory breaks, and to him trying to force them to work off the clock is a huge no-no. What made it better is that one of the guys had his phone set up to video what happened and caught it all. When the guys on break refused to work on their break, he told them all to leave and not come back. They then called the corporate HR office and explained what happened. He got transferred to another store after a week or two, and we had a much cooler director for a while. The only downside is we didn't have a maze of carts anymore, which was fun. Don't focus on your lack of maze carts. Smile because you had a maze of carts. Our next story is by OneMoose9. I have to move my towel? Fine, have some sand. When I was 12-ish, my family and I went on a camping trip with my mentally abusive pill of an uncle and his family. One day, we went to a beach that was a 5-minute walk from our campsite. I got there first and it was super windy, so I spent forever struggling to get my towel to lay still. Now, when I say it was windy, I mean it was whipping up sand windy, and any sort of movement sent sand flying through the air. It was great. When I finally got settled, it wasn't long till the rest of the group started filing onto the beach with my a-hole uncle leading the way. My uncle decided to lay his towel out about 3 feet from where I was sitting. As soon as he finished, he looked at me and demanded that I move myself and my towel somewhere else. To this day, I cannot remember what his reason was for making me move, but I can tell you it was absurd and I was thoroughly annoyed. So I got up and grabbed my towel in a very aggressive manner, causing a wall of sand to fly up and slam into my uncle's face. I'm pretty sure he wanted to kill me that day, what with all the screaming about how I did it on purpose and got sand in his eyes and mouth. But I swore up and down that it was an accident, so the rest of our family believed me and they told my uncle he was acting insane. By then, everyone on the beach was staring at us, so he had no choice but to stop making a scene and hate me in silence. I most definitely did it on purpose. That's definitely not fair. OP was the first one there. They had their towel down long before their uncle did. Seniority doesn't mean anything when you got a spot on a public beach. I think OP had every right to earthbend and cause a wall of sand to fly into his uncle's face. Our next story is by Philosopheraven. No cell phones? Okay. I have been babysitting this little girl who is living the dream I wish my childhood was. The parents asked me one day if I could start picking her up from school since she gets out at 2:50 and they're still working. I said no problem and got all the details for the pickup process. Now for some background, she goes to a very expensive private school. Like her elementary school tuition is more than most people pay to go to college. They're strict with parents, students, and the pickup process. My name and car had to be added to a list so I could pick her up. You also have to display a paper with the child's names on the dashboard of your car. I'm pretty sure they also did a background check on me, but who knows. The first day I go to pick her up, I get in the car line around 2:35. I thought I would be early and wanted to give myself time in case there were any issues. There were already around 10 cars waiting, so I pulled up behind them and put my car in park. So much for being early. Anyway, as you're pulling in, there was a sign that says no cell phones. I was like, that makes sense. They don't want people staring at their phones when the line starts moving, and God forbid it's not the most efficient process the school can organize. I am waiting patiently, listening to music and admiring the Olympic-sized pool when I get a text from the mom. It's already been 5 minutes since I pulled into the line and I looked down to read her text. She asked if I was there and everything was okay. I replied with yeah and looked up to find a woman beside my window with a bullhorn. She said, more like yelled through her mask, "No cell phones allowed, put it away and respect the rules." I was shocked and kind of terrified that she was going to use the bullhorn to announce my infraction to the rest of the line. The whole texting took less than a minute to read and reply. I apologized, and at 2:50, the line started moving and the pickup went fine. I was going to be picking up this girl from school every day for the foreseeable future, and if I wanted to get a good spot in line, I had to get there around 2:20. I thought, there is no way I'm going to sit twiddling my thumbs for 30 minutes. I thought of listening to a podcast, and then I had a better idea. The next day, I went to pick up the little girl, and I saw the woman perched like a hawk at the top of the building stairs, scanning the cars. I got in my bag and started maliciously complying. The woman, who could have been mistaken for an Olympic sprinter, was at my window ready to attack. "No cell phones!" And her voice dropped as she looked down at my book. I asked if there was an issue because I hadn't seen a sign that said no books. She was frozen. How could she, an educator at a prestigious private school, tell someone not to read? I'm still bringing my book, Dune, and I hope to finish it before I see any unexpected spoilers about the movie. Or before Bullhorn Sprinter Hawk Lady petitions to change the sign. Imagining how they would be with rules for prestigious elementary private schools, I wouldn't be surprised for OP to pull up and see no reading or no something about attention anywhere but the road or whatever. I kinda get the cell phone thing if they're actually in the process of picking up kids, but if you're there half an hour before pickup time, I don't really see what the problem is. This next story is by Gemmas3289. Give me an undeserving bad grade on a project. Enjoy my final exam. I was sitting around listening to stories on YouTube for malicious compliance, and a story from my high school years seemed that it might fit. Note that this was over 10 years ago. I was in grade 11 and I was taking a class that had basic web design. At the beginning of the year, things were fine, until about midway where the teacher seemed to be going through some personal issues and would mark us even more harshly than before. I was usually getting straight 85% to 90%, and now I am barely getting 60%. I even asked my fellow classmates if they thought I deserved that grade, and no one agreed. So we're getting close to summer, and our final exam was coming up, worth 30% of our final grade, and the project we had to do was to create a company and sell a board game. He handed out his checklist of things that are needed and added at the bottom that, if we can play the game in class with others, he would give us extra points. Me, being a teenager at the time, decided it's time for some malicious compliance. I spent 2 weeks meticulously putting this website together. I think we were using Adobe Dreamweaver at the time. I had a big flashy intro that I made in Flash, and I even had the website in different languages. Wasn't asked, but I added it for flair. The game I decided to make this for was very unique. I called it Are You Bored Yet? Inside this game was a single board with 10 spaces, 2 sorry tokens, and a single dice. The object of the game was if you can roll the same number 10 times in a row, you get a point. The first 1 to 10 points wins. However, if you can't, you lose a point and go back down to the bottom. So around this time, I got sick and I had to miss about 2 to 3 weeks of school. This means I had to miss the presentation date. However, I had gotten a doctor's note and a note from the hospital stating that I had to miss due to illness. All my other classes allowed me to make up the exams and I had to give my presentation to the teacher. So I stand up in front of the empty class and I start giving my presentation and all things are going well. At the end of it, he says thank you for your time and starts to walk me out. I say, hold on teacher, according to your rules we must play a game if I want extra marks. You could see the oh crap look in his eyes. Note that the teacher put that in there because he wanted it to be played with other students. But since there was no other students left in the class, he was forced to play it with me. I sat there for a good 45 minutes. He didn't want to stop and I wasn't gonna stop him playing this game, none of us being able to score a point. Frustrated, he turns to me and says, I'll give you bonus marks if you just say we completed the game. I agreed and went my way. About 2 weeks later, we go back in to get our final marks and see how we did. To my shock and smile, I had received 105% on the exam. I like to believe he stopped being so grouchy with his markings afterwards. I don't know if necessarily "Are you bored yet" would have done it, but maybe all this playing board games with their students, or at least witnessing their students do so, inspired some of that childlike enthusiasm, and maybe that's what helped influence the markings thing. Either way, "Are you bored yet" is a pretty good concept. It's simple but effective and pretty funny. This next story is by jhawkerjohn. Hospice Visit. My 80-year-old father visits my stepmother in hospice every day. The hospice is connected to an assisted living facility, from which she was recently moved. The rules for visitation are different between the hospice and the assisted living facility, and they've changed a couple of times in the past month. The staff members have been confused about the rules, often giving conflicting instructions on how to schedule a visit. After one recent visit, my father asked one of the staff to schedule him for 2 p.m. the next day. She said he couldn't do that in person and that he would have to call the office 12 hours before the visit. They argued about it for a bit, then finally my dad went home. Unsuccessful. So he set an alarm for 2 a.m. and called the staff to book his appointment. He's allowed to visit her whenever he wants to now. If this is happening during the middle of COVID, I kinda get the weird fluctuation. That said, you would think for somebody in hospice or an assisted living facility would have the visitation rules spelt out pretty blatantly and easily for them, regardless of changes. And our final story of the day is by Crazy Waffless. We can't use carts? Okay. So I, 17-year-old female, work at a well-known grocery store. Recently, we got new managers who decided to change all of the rules. Instead of allowing us to use shopping carts to take back items that customers didn't want, we have to either use L carts or walk the stuff up by hand. The problem with that is that there are very few of those in the store and we can never find any. One of my managers yelled at me for using a cart to take back 3 heavy bins worth of merchandise, saying that I was not allowed to do that. So I got some empty boxes that we had nearby, threw some of the stuff in it, and started walking up to the customer service to put it away. She started yelling again that I had to use an L cart, but I told her that the rules only said we can't use shopping carts. I continued to use the boxes to take the stuff back, while she stood behind the service desk, glaring at me and talking about me to other managers. The other manager said that technically I wasn't breaking any rules, so I could continue using the boxes. What I don't understand is why does it seem like this manager's prerogative is just to make things as hard as possible on their employees? I can understand the cart thing, they don't want to use carts and take them away from customers that might be showing up. But what's the problem with using boxes that weren't meant for anything else or just kind of laying around? I just don't understand why this manager was getting so up in arms over something so simple. It's work smart, not hard, right? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss an upcoming video from the Storytime channel. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, so no matter what you did, thank you for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here.